Program, I'm going to do an introduction of the panelist and the Zoom software and some chat software. The agenda will be an introduction by myself, a presentation from Swami. We'll do a question and answer session together, and then we'll have some closing comments. So I introduce myself. My name is John Leuenberg. I'm the one commercially responsible for diagnostics. So if you have any questions, by all means, don't hesitate to contact me. Swami is pre-sales and consultancy. He works in our Diagnostics Competence Center. Kurt Weissman is our product manager for diagnostics, and Koen Porteners is our solutions architect for diagnostics. Good. A little bit about the Zoom software, which is the software we're using for this particular medium. In Zoom, you have an option to chat. And by chat, you can ask questions. So you just need to check on the chat and you can ask your questions. At the moment, we're not going to make this interactive. It will be, there'll be a question and answer session coming later on, and we'll answer all the questions. So you can just load up all your questions as we go through the presentation and go from there. Good. There is also the opportunity to chat between and amongst yourselves. This is with Freenode. In the chat group, which I just mentioned in Zoom, I believe there is a link to Freenode, and there you can have the, you type in your name and you use number sign DIAGEU1 as the channel, and then you can, you'll log into that and then you can start chatting as you need. Good. Gain control. So we wanted to provide some examples of where diagnostics has been used and how they've been able to benefit from the use of diagnostics. So the first one is a Dutch utility. They were able to save 185,000 euros per year avoiding slow user VPN connections. We've had another Dutch utility that have been able to save 230,000 euros per year optimizing the configuration and implementation of quality manager roles. Lastly, we've got a Malaysian utility that have been able to save $200,000 US dollars just by setting up indexes on the database. So a quote from Annexus, which is one of our Dutch utilities using diagnostics. Diagnostics has shown that quality manager is a laborious and time-consuming factor in the registration process. By optimizing this process, we now see in diagnostics that quality manager activity, as well as the number of reported quality manager flags, has been halved, which is a fantastic result in terms of improving the business process surrounding quality manager. Good. I'm going to start and hand over this particular portion of the presentation to Swami. Please don't forget, if you've got some questions, put it in the chat or put it into the chat of the Zoom software. We'll look forward to answering those questions later on. Swami?
Okay. Right, let me just quickly share my screen. Yes, so everyone, I hope is able to see my screen. Okay, right. So hello everyone, my name is Swami and welcome to the webinar. I would like to start this webinar by providing a brief introduction of our product. Diagnostics is a big data-based solution which is built on top of Small World, and it tracks everything that happens inside Small World. So every single user click that user performs, every single database transaction, every single map-based activity that is done inside Small World is tracked by Diagnostics, is then processed and made available in this easy to understand dashboard. Using these dashboards, Diagnostics helps administrators to identify bottlenecks which are there in Small World and then thereby use these insights to make changes in small world to make their users more productive and improve the user's overall small world experience. I would like to add here that diagnostics is capable of tracking the user activities anonymously. What this means is diagnostics out of box can be configured to ensure that no user specific information is collected as part of the tracking process. Okay, one very common question that we get asked is if diagnostics is tracking everything that is happening inside small world, it must affect the user experience or of small world, right? The answer to that question is no, it doesn't. Out of box, diagnostics has no impact whatsoever on the user experience. The way it makes it happen is quite simple. The data which is generated by diagnostics are put on a queue and is sent out as soon as diagnostics senses an idle time in small world. So say if I were to put this into perspective, imagine there is a user who is going to open up an editor, click on the get button, and then click on the go to button, right? So as soon as the user clicks on the get button, two events are generated, which are then placed on the queue. The first one is the button being clicked, and second one is the background query which got executed. So once this operation is completed and just before the user is about to click on the go to button, diagnostics senses this millisecond of idle time, which is there in small world, and immediately sends out the data that is stored in the queue. And that is how diagnostics is able to track everything that is happening inside a small world without having any impact on the user experience. The agenda for today would be as follows. I would begin by talking about how diagnostics can assist administrators in their maintenance efforts. It can be both proactive as well as reactive. I will showcase how diagnostics can help administrators to gain a 360-degree view of everything that is happening with their data in small world. Next, I will give a brief on the role diagnostics can play in any upgrade projects, and I will end it with giving you an introduction to our user portal, which is a platform where our customers can download the modules which were built by other customers and some modules by our own. Okay, so let's start with the first part of the webinar, the maintenance. Maintenance in small world has traditionally been done as soon as the user reports on the issue. But there are some issues such as say adding a super file before the database runs out of space, for which it is useful for the administrators. In fact, it is essential for the administrators to be proactive rather than being reactive. So in order to do that, what diagnostics does is it offers something called an event-based alert. So what this does is this functionality allows administrators to configure reports on crucial parameters such as the database size to be sent out regularly on predetermined intervals. Say, for example, I have an email which was sent from the diagnostics, which is running in our system here at Real World, which is going to inform me on the size of the database. So I have the email open right here. It has an attachment here. If I just open this, so this tells me exactly what I need to know to decide when I have to expand the size of my database. This report is generated using the historical data that diagnostics has been gathering over a period of time. Using this historical data, as you can see in the chart over here, diagnostics is able to tell me what is the, these are the data set names. This is the current occupied size, what is the current size. And this is the daily growth rate. How much is it on an average? What is the growth rate of this data set? And using this particular growth rate, it is also able to kind of predict what would be the expected number of days before which I will have to add a super file to my data set. So, okay. So using similarly, diagnostics can be configured to send out regular reports on, say, a monthly KPI based report, or say if you are on a UAT of a project, UAT phase of a project, weekly reports on the functions of functions which are being tested, which are the ones which are throwing a lot of errors, which are the ones which are working fine, and so on. Yeah, another common challenge that clients face is to arrive at the Citrix server to user ratio or any server to user ratio. So since Diagnostics is already tracking the user load on each server, customers can leverage this readily available information to arrive at an optimal user count per Citrix server or any server. These dashboards they can have dashboards which look something similar like to the ones that you see here. Say all these three dashboards that you see here are time chart based ones. The one on the top tells you about the number of users per server. The second one talks about the performance of small world application. And the third one here shows the performance of the database operation. So say if I were to look at server one, you can see here that around 11 a.m. there is a surge in the number of users who are logging into the system. And almost instantly, you can see that in these two dashboards, that the time taken for the functionalities as well as the time taken for a database transaction to happen have instantly shot up. In say, if you look at GIS Server 3, however, we see that the performance is great at the beginning of the day. It doesn't take that much for an application to respond or a database transaction to happen. But over a period of time, there are a few users who are logging in and we see the performance dipping a bit, but overall it does maintain a steady line. So dashboards such as this can be used by administrators to analyze, to play around and arrive at an optimal server to user ratio. Right. So this was more on the proactive side of the maintenance that administrators can do with diagnostics. Now let's look at the reactive. That is what happens when what role can diagnostics play when a user reports on an issue. So everyday maintenance for everyday maintenance, what diagnostics offers is to administrators is a unique ability to like go back in time and look at the steps that were followed by the user before he or she got the reported error. Say it delivers this using a dedicated dashboards by the name Replay User Click. So let's say a developer is working on a ticket which was raised by an user a few days ago. All this developer would need from the user is the session ID, which is nothing but a unique ID that diagnostics provides for each user session. So administrators, what he does is it looks something like this. He uses the session ID to understand when the user got the traceback, which you can see the action timestamp here. And this is the traceback that he has got, the user has got. He then goes to the replay user click dashboard, enters the session ID, which you see over here, and then goes to the time which he got from here and see the exact steps that the user followed, which are these. So you can see here the exact values that the user selected before he tried to insert an object, and that what resulted in a traceback. So what this does is it makes it very easy for an administrator to recreate an issue and saves a lot of time in going to the users, talking to them, understanding how the error came up and so on. Right. So coming to the second part of the webinar, which is around data issue. Data issues are difficult ones to solve for any customer. Most of the telcos and utilities have a lot of activities which are happening in their network data. They have their own users who are working on providing new connections to the customers. They have offshore resources who are working on network updation. They have their own QC team who are working on validating their network and so on. So what happens is all these activities results in hundreds of users working simultaneously on their network, creating hundreds of jobs, hundreds of designs, posting, merging, handling conflicts, and all this simultaneous activity most of the time results in most of the times are the reason why the data problem happens inside small world. So when we think of a data problem in small world, the most crucial one that we can think of is a data loss. So data loss, when it happens in small world, majority of the time it happens because of the way a user handled a conflict. So although the telcos and utilities have their own set of do's and don'ts on how a particular conflict have to be handled, but they still do encounter issues such as data loss from time to time. And when this happens, it is very difficult for them to get an understanding on what really caused this data loss to happen. Was it the process that was the problem? Was it too many users working simultaneously on same parts of the network? Is it a user problem? Is it a case which is not handled in the rule book? There is no real way for them to know this. So what Diagnostics does here is it offers clients with a unique solution to their data problems by placing trackers on the merge and post functionalities, which are the background functionality which gets triggered, which actually triggers the conflict, or which handles the entire conflict handling scenario. And the data which is generated by these trackers are then used by Diagnostics to intimate your administrators whenever a handling of a conflict results in a data loss. I will show you how. Yeah, let us take a look at the dashboard for merge and post functionalities, which we have for in Diagnostics. The first dashboard that you see here is providing insights on which collections or objects in which users are facing most of the conflicts. These dashboards can be extended to provide more details on conflicts, such as field in a particular collection which is getting conflicted a lot. How are the users handling these conflicts? Are they going with the parent, with the child? Just about every aspect of the conflict that handling that is happening inside your network. The second table that you see here is providing, which is just an extension of the first. Here you see that it has 5 columns. The first column is providing the name of the data set. The second one is providing the total number of change that has happened inside Diagnostics inside this particular data set. The third one is the total number of conflicts, how many of them have resulted in the conflicts, how many of them are still not resolved, and how many of these mergers resulted in no conflicts whatsoever. So one of the crucial thing about data loss is administrators get to know about the data loss only after it has happened in the system. So what Diagnostics does is it provides administrators with a way to know the problem, to identify the problem before it would happen. Let me show you how. You remember the email that I opened up a while ago? Diagnostics, what it does is it can be configured to send out similar email notification each time a merge results in a conflict, and a conflict then results in a potential data loss. So as soon as this happens, these 3 things happen simultaneously, there can be an email which can be shot out to any pre-configured email IDs, including ones for the data administrators in your network. And this will allow the administrators to take any necessary step and prevent a system-wide data loss from happening. Basically, he can stop the user from posting the data into the DM top. Right. And also these data which are being gathered, this merge and post and conflict data which are being gathered, can be made more insightful by clubbing these with the data from Design Manager. So if you can see here, we have 2 dashboards which are an examples of which were built by clubbing the data from these 2. The first one provides the information on business processes which are causing the most number of conflicts. And the second one kind of dives a bit deeper and provides the insight on the objects which are causing majority of these conflicts in a given business process. So administrators can design complex dashboards such as these. These are very simple ones. Depending on what a particular utility wants, what is the requirement, what they want to look into, they can design complex dashboards such as this one, which might talk about top business process, say for example, which are resulting in data loss, for example. And once administrators have a visualization of these information, the performing of a root cause analysis becomes that much easier for them. And also tracing in Diagnostics can also be placed on other functionalities which affect the data. It can be ones which such as quality manager, which is used to validate the quality of the data, or any checkpoint rollbacks which happens inside a database, and so on. So basically anything that affects the data in Small World, you can place a tracker on that. You can track all anything, any data functionality that happens inside Small World using Diagnostics. Right. So the next one, the next section is on the upgrade. There is this one exercise that every utility has to do whenever they plan on going on an upgrade, and that is the planning phase. And the major chunk of the planning phase is where the consultants and who are going to work on them and the users, they sit down together and they take all the Small World functionalities which are available in their Small World, and they have to classify them into one of these three buckets. They will classify the functionalities which are rarely used, which they don't want to upgrade, they don't want it in their system. They will put it in the retire bucket. In the upgrade bucket, they will place functionalities which are used by the users and whose performance are okay, so they will just go directly to the next version. And then there is the improve bucket, where functionalities which are constantly used by the users, but they need improvement. It can be a bug, it can be a performance improvement. So these functionalities are placed in the third bucket. So what this particular exercise is usually done by having these long sessions with users from different departments who will then sit down and classify functionalities one by one. So what Diagnostics offers here is, since it already tracks everything that is happening inside Small World, administrators can leverage this information to skip all this intermediate step, especially this planning phase, and go directly into the classification part. So for example, take these three dashboards. These have been generated from Diagnostics. The first one, it will tell me which are the queries which are taking a lot of time. Second one talks about the most used function. Third one talks about the business processes which are taking a lot of time. So administrators can basically use dashboards such as these to classify every aspect of their Small World installation into one of these three buckets. Okay, so we are at the last part of the webinar. So this is on the user portal. So although Diagnostics tracks everything that is happening inside a typical Small World installations, many of our clients do want to track more. For example, some custom application that they might have built, they want to track it. And with Diagnostics, it is very easy for them to extend the tracking capability. And our clients regularly use them to build their own custom dashboards. And since there is a good chance that a custom dashboard which was developed by one of our customers might also be used by any of our other customers, we developed a platform to allow our customers to share their custom dashboards with each other, and we call it the user portal, which you see over here. Yeah. So what in user portal, what our customers can do is they can submit the custom dashboards which they built, and which is then validated by our team and then uploaded to this particular portal. And we launched this particular portal a few months ago, and we already have dashboards which were submitted for design manager, for job manager, quality manager, and so on. All these dashboards, some of them were developed by our staff and some of them were developed by some of our clients. So we also, one more thing, sorry. We also have here the recordings from our previous webinars. We have one for business process and the other one which is similar to this one. So which, if you are interested, you can check it out on this particular user portal. So with that, I come to the end of my webinar, and I hope you guys found this insightful, and I sincerely hope that you too will one day shine the beacon. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Yes, I'll just need to stop this. Okay, I don't know how to do that. Okay.
And
All right. Yep.
good. So we now get on to the question and answer session. So I'm going to go to the chat and see if we've got some questions. There we go. We'll wait for a bit. Still don't have any questions popped up yet. We have a question. Do you need to customize diagnostics, and how easy is it to customize diagnostics?
Okay. As I told, it's not essential to customize diagnostics, but many of our customers who have their own custom functionalities built in and they want to track it, they do try to customize diagnostics. They do customize diagnostics, and it is very, very easy to create custom trackers in diagnostics. A lot of our customers do build develop dashboards on their own, some of which you saw in the user portal. It's quite easy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are there available success stories on solving data loss issues?
Let me see. Yes, yes, there is. Yes, we do have a success story. One of our telco clients, who is based out of USA, Cox Communications, recently managed to perform a root cause analysis on a major data loss which happened on their network, and they did that using diagnostics. In fact, they even presented a paper on how diagnostics help them resolve or perform this root cause analysis, along with other things that they are doing with diagnostics in the recent US Summit.
Yes, and if I can add to that, Cox is quite willing to share that story that they presented at the Bellevue conference. Good. Another question: can you use diagnostics for security logs?
With security logs, would you mean which are the users who are accessing it? What exactly are you trying to track?
Yeah, that's exactly the question we've proposed back, and hopefully we'll get a response. Logging user behavior.
Yes. You can. Logging user behavior is exactly what diagnostics does. It does that anonymously. If it is needed, it can be configured both to do it anonymously as well as to show the user information. It can basically track everything that happens inside Small World. If it is happening inside Small World, it can track. Diagnostics can track that, including security.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, one of the nice things about diagnostics is we get to see which applications and functions are being used and which ones are not being used. So good. We have a question. You mentioned about quality manager flags were halved with the help of diagnostics. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yeah. What happened here is what Quality Manager dashboard, what it helped them understand is the user behavior and what are the frequently errors, which are frequently reported errors, which are coming up. And they, using diagnostics, what they managed to do is they managed to identify a trend, and they managed to group these into different buckets. So ones which were most frequently reported, what they did is they reached out to the user and tried to understand why it was happening. And then probably using a short training session, they were reduced to eliminate the errors which were coming into this particular bucket, and similarly for the rest of the buckets.
Okay, good. We have a question regarding the upgrade, how diagnostics can help plan the upgrade of Small World. Can you provide a little bit more information on that, Swami?
Yeah, sure. So diagnostics can help in two ways. One is it reduces the planning phase by a very large margin, because it literally eliminates the need for user and the consultants to sit together and classify what are the things that they want to upgrade and what are the things that they don't want to upgrade. So all this is already there in diagnostics. So there is no need to have all these sessions. And the bigger the utilities are, the more time it takes that they have to concentrate on this particular session. So with diagnostics, this part is more or less eliminated. The second one, what it does is for the functionalities which the user feels or which diagnostics says that have to be enhanced in terms of performance, diagnostics can be used to perform a comparative study on what the performance of a particular tool was in the previous version and what it is in the current version. And this information can be leveraged, is very essential in the UAT phase, especially for the consultants to know whether or not the performance enhancement which they were aiming for as part of the upgrade has been achieved or not.
Good. So, and I think I want to add to that, one of the most important aspects of diagnostics is once you install diagnostics and you start tracking the user activity, we can start to develop a baseline. And from that baseline, you can determine many, many things in terms of performance, in terms of usability, in terms of applications you want to migrate, that you don't want to migrate. But having a baseline is the key. And that's, I just wanted to mention that. Good. Any more questions from any other attendees? Good. We have another question, Swami. You showed small world monitoring. Can you also use this to improve business processes?
Yes, actually, diagnostics can play a vital role in analyzing the bottlenecks which are there in any GIS driven business process. And what it does, how it does it is places trackers on three crucial components of a business process in small world, which are the design manager, the job manager, and the quality manager. In fact, we did a recently did a webinar exclusively on diagnostics for business process, which is available on the user portal, wherein I dive quite deep into how we can do that.
One sec. We have another question. Hopefully, yes. You mentioned that diagnostics insights gained from various dashboards can be used to improve efficiency of users. Can the dashboards be used for training purposes?
Yes, it can. As I mentioned, diagnostics offers a unique dashboard, which is the replay user click. So say there is one functionality which the users are doing wrong, or there is an efficient way to do that. Administrators can identify users who need training and then provide training for these particular users. If there is an efficient way to do this and users are not doing it, diagnostics can help isolate those users alone. And it can be certainly used for the training process.
Yes, and quite honestly, if we don't invoke the correct business processes at the correct time, we can cause data corruption issues within the small world environment, which is what diagnostics can help you resolve. Good. Any more questions? No more questions right now. Good, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the conclusion portion of this particular webinar. Thank you very much for every participant. So I want to let you know that you can try it, diagnostics on a trial period. We offer it as a 3-month trial. You define 3 specific areas of concern to resolve. And out of that, you receive an analysis on those 3 with outcomes and recommendations how to improve. Of course, there are other options in terms of managed services, purchase, lease, training, and after analysis services as well. So as part of this webinar, we have a nice little action going on. First customer deciding to move forward will receive 5 days of consulting free. And this expires as of October the 7th, because as of October the 8th, we will be present at the European GE User Conference being conducted at Wembley in London. We will be at booth number 24, where we'll be demonstrating not only diagnostics, but some other products as well. To let you know, we have a major announcement coming up October the 8th as we open up the show in London. So we look forward to seeing everyone to being there. Lastly, contact information. First of all, the website for diagnostics is www.diagnosticsincontrol.com. Any information or questions or concerns or whatever, you can send it to info@diagnosticsincontrol.com. We look forward to answering those questions for you. At this point in time, it is the end of the webinar. I'd like to thank once again all of the attendees and Swami for the presentation. We look forward to seeing you at Wembley. If earlier, by all means, do not hesitate to send us information. Thank you, and bye-bye.